Welcome to Hard Script.
She screamed it from across the kitchen. I'm better off on my own. No tears. No hesitation. Just rage, sharpened by months of quiet contempt. I stood there, coffee half poured, staring at a woman I no longer recognized. She wasn't asking for space. She was declaring war. And I didn't flinch, didn't raise my voice, didn't ask why. I just nodded once and walked out the door. That was the moment it shifted, not when the words hit, but when I didn't fight back. Because she expected resistance. She wanted it. Not because she wanted to lose me, but because she thought I wouldn't let her go. But she was wrong. This didn't start in that kitchen. It started long before. Her name's Rachel. We met in college. Two broke kids with dreams too big for our hometowns. She used to laugh in her sleep. Used to leave notes in my lunch. Used to say I made her feel safe. That version of her disappeared somewhere between the third promotion and her new circle of independent friends. They taught her how to speak louder, how to take space, how to test boundaries like strength only existed in distance. And I watched her fall in love with herself, and out of love with us. At first, I tried to keep up. I planned dinners, made reservations, tried talking calmly, honestly. She rolled her eyes, said I was too available, said she needed more room to grow. So I gave her space, and she filled it with silence. She stopped texting during the day, started coming home later, stopped asking how I was, started telling me how I wasn't enough. Then came the coldness. No kisses, no touch, not even eye contact over dinner. And now here we were, in a kitchen full of dirty dishes and dying conversation. And she was shouting the words she thought would break me. I'm better off on my own. But instead of begging, I let her go. No exit speech. No dramatic retreat. Just one final glance. Not at her, but at the empty seat where I used to feel like I belonged. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I didn't scroll through memories or write a long message. I booked a storage unit. Started calling around for a new place. Quietly updated my will. I wasn't planning to leave. I was already gone. She just hadn't realized it yet. The next morning, she waited for me to speak. To ask if she meant it. To push back. To say something. Anything. That showed I still cared. But I didn't. I made my coffee, tied my shoes, left for work without a word. No tension, no drama, just absence. And that rattled her more than any argument ever could. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't defending myself. I wasn't chasing. I wasn't hoping she'd change. I was gone in every way that mattered. Rachel hated silence. She thrived in noise, in chaos, in emotional tug-of-war. It made her feel powerful, necessary. But silence, that exposed everything she tried to hide. She texted me midday, not to apologize, but to test the waters. Are you even planning to come home tonight? I didn't reply. That evening, I came home at my usual time. Same quiet routine, same blank expression. She stood in the hallway like a stranger in her own house, arms crossed, waiting for me to break the tension. But I didn't. She finally spoke, voice sharp, almost amused. You're not even fighting for this. That was the moment I knew she still didn't get it. Because I had already fought. Not with words, but with consistency. I stayed when she grew cold. I tried when she pulled away. I gave when she withheld. And now? Now I was done auditioning for someone who couldn't see the value in what I already was. That night, I started emptying drawers. Just one or two. Just enough to notice. She didn't ask why, but I saw her eyes linger on the empty space. Where my things used to be. She went out the next day. New nails. New dress. Came back smelling like confidence. She sat across from me at dinner, a rare occurrence, and tried to make small talk. I answered in nods and single words. Not because I was punishing her, but because I'd run out of stories to share with someone who stopped listening months ago. She thought she could walk away from me emotionally, and I'd stay glued to the spot until she decided to return. She miscalculated, because when she declared she was better off alone, I believed her, and I honored it. With silence, with distance, with calm, calculated exits. One drawer at a time. By the end of that week, Rachel shifted strategies. She wasn't shouting anymore. She was scheming. Her first move was social, subtle, and surgical. I got a message from one of her friends, Lindsay, the kind of woman who always spoke with a tone that felt like judgment wrapped in concern. She wrote, "She's really struggling. You just walking away like this, it's not like you." I didn't answer, because it was exactly like me now. See, Rachel wasn't hurting. She was recruiting. She wanted validation. She wanted someone to tell her she was the victim, that I was cold, uncaring, selfish. She needed that echo chamber to keep her story alive. But I'd stopped playing the villain in her script. That weekend, she cooked breakfast, first time in months. Set the table, played our old playlist. Even wore the hoodie she used to steal from my closet. The one she claimed made her feel safe. I walked in, saw the scene, smelled the eggs, and didn't sit down. I grabbed a coffee, took it to the garage, spent 2 hours reorganizing tools I hadn't touched in months. Not because they needed sorting, but because it gave me silence. And right now, silence was more honest than any conversation we could have. She didn't follow me, didn't text, didn't knock. Later that night, she asked if I wanted to watch something together. I told her I had plans. She didn't ask what. She just stared at me, long, hard, like she was trying to read a version of me she no longer recognized. Because that's what this was now. Recognition. I wasn't reacting, wasn't biting the bait, wasn't circling the emotional drain she used to pull me into. And she felt it, that loss of control. So she tried one more thing. She brought up my family, said my sister asked about her, said they missed us. But she wasn't talking about family. She was testing for weakness, trying to see if the memory of what we used to be could pull me back into orbit. It couldn't, because I'd already stopped missing us and started remembering what it felt like to breathe without permission. She used to win these moments, used to get her way by layering guilt into affection. But not this time. Now she was playing chess against a man who no longer needed to win, because he'd already walked off the board. It was a Tuesday night when she crossed the line. I pulled into the driveway after a long day at work. The lights in the living room were dimmed, music low. A wine bottle sat open on the counter, 2 glasses. That's when I saw him. Some guy, tall, too confident for someone new to this house. His laugh echoed from the kitchen like he owned the place. I didn't flinch, didn't ask questions, didn't even make eye contact. I walked past them both, grabbed my gym bag from the hallway, and left. No argument, no scene. Just silence that struck deeper than any raised voice ever could. She wanted a reaction. She wanted a spark, even if it was anger. Instead, I gave her nothing. That was the real blow. Because to her, this wasn't about a date. It was about power. She wanted to provoke something in me. Jealousy, rage, a confession that I still cared. But what she got was the version of me that no longer played defense. Later that night, she texted. Just one line. Guess you really don't give a damn anymore. She was right. Not in a spiteful way. Not with bitterness. Just truth. Because when someone tells you they're better off alone, and then proves it by bringing someone else into the space you once shared, you don't chase them. You hold the door open. The next morning, I was already gone before she woke up. By noon, I'd moved the rest of my things into storage. By evening, the key to the house was left in the drawer we once used for takeout menus and spare batteries. No note. No message. Only absence. And absence is louder than heartbreak. Her mistake wasn't bringing someone else around. Her mistake was assuming I'd care. Because when you've truly let go of someone, their games stop matching. That night, I slept like I hadn't in months. No thoughts. No questions. No spinning what-ifs. Just clean air and space that wasn't polluted by manipulation. She thought showing me she could move on would hurt. But all it did was confirm what I already knew. I was already gone. She just hadn't caught up yet. The moment I stopped reacting, she started unraveling. It wasn't loud. Not at first. It started with her asking around. Mutual friends, old co-workers, even my sister. Little feelers, dressed up as concern. Is he okay? Has he said anything? They all told her the same thing. He seems good. Focused. Calm. She didn't like that. Because calm meant she'd lost her grip. So I made it permanent. I started with the accounts. Joint bank access? Gone. Streaming services? Cancelled. Subscriptions she never touched, but expected me to manage? Ended. I wasn't being petty. I was drawing the final line between me and her. I changed every password tied to my name. Moved my checking account. Updated my emergency contacts. She noticed quickly. One morning she called me. First time in weeks. Her tone wasn't angry. It was uncertain. She asked why she couldn't log into our shared photo cloud. Said she needed access. I told her she didn't. And hung up. No explanation. No follow-up. She texted later that night. Long message. Said she felt erased. She wasn't wrong. But what she didn't realize was, this wasn't punishment. It was housekeeping. She left me long before she ever raised her voice. With the cold shoulders, the snide remarks, the refusal to touch or talk, or even share space like we used to. She had been gone. I was just catching up. But while I moved forward with discipline, she panicked. Started posting old pictures of us on social media. Captioned them with vague regrets, nostalgia filters, and poetic nonsense about timing. Mutual friends started texting me, asking if we were working things out. I didn't respond, because I wasn't rebuilding. I was demolishing what remained. And when she realized that, really realized it, she finally snapped. I got a voicemail the next morning. Slurred, emotional, unhinged. She said I'd changed. Said I used to be warm. Said she missed me, hated this version of me, didn't recognize the man I'd become. But here's the truth. She never saw who I really was. She saw what I gave her. And when that supply ran dry, she mistook it for me vanishing. But I hadn't vanished. I'd evolved into someone who didn't wait for people to choose him. Into someone who didn't keep doors open out of sentimentality. The man she was trying to provoke? He was gone. And what remained didn't need her approval. It had been over a month since I walked out of that kitchen without looking back. A month since she declared she was better off alone. And I gave her exactly that. I had moved into a small apartment. Clean, quiet, controlled. Minimal furniture. No clutter. Every corner was mine. Every silence was earned. But apparently, peace on my side meant chaos on hers. Because that Thursday, she showed up at my office. Not a text. Not a warning. Just appeared in the lobby like nothing had changed. Like we were still us. The receptionist called my extension, said a woman named Rachel was asking to see me. I didn't ask why. Didn't ask what she looked like or what she wanted. I just said, send her up. Not because I wanted to see her, but because this was the last step in her spiral. I stood when she entered, but I didn't smile. Didn't walk around the desk. She looked thinner. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone who'd been swimming too long in water she thought she could control. She tried to play calm. Said she was just in the area. Wanted to talk. Catch up. See how I was doing. I nodded once. Didn't offer her a seat. That pause. It said everything. She shifted on her feet. Started talking faster. Words spilled out about regrets, how she didn't mean what she said, how things had just gotten messy. She tried to sound self-aware. Tried to rebuild the bridge with language. But she forgot something important. I wasn't on that bridge anymore. I let her talk for 2, maybe 3 minutes. I watched her eyes dart around my office, looking for signs of softness. There were none. Then I checked my watch. Said I had a meeting. And walked to the door. She blinked. Took half a step forward. I held the door open. No anger. No drama. Just clarity. She walked past me, slowly, like she expected me to stop her. I didn't. She turned at the elevator. Said, "You really don't care anymore, do you?" I didn't answer. Because caring isn't proven in words. It's proven in presence. And I was no longer present. Not in her world. Not in her crisis. Not in her rewrite of what happened. She was still trying to revise the ending. But I'd already written it. And it didn't include her name. I waited another 10 days. Not out of hesitation, but out of respect for the process, not the person. I'd already made every decision. Already had the paperwork signed, sealed, and reviewed by an attorney who didn't ask questions. They just followed instructions. The only thing left was timing. And I wasn't going to hand this over in a fit of emotion. I wasn't going to use it as a threat. It wasn't revenge. It was closure, in its cleanest, most deliberate form. So I had it delivered on a Tuesday. Neutral. Forgettable. Just another day. She was home. I knew that because her calendar hadn't changed in years. Same workout class. Same dog walking schedule. Same idle afternoons. The courier dropped the envelope on her porch. No knock. No words. Just paper and ink that spelled out everything she refused to admit. We were done. Inside was nothing dramatic. Just the truth on legal paper. Clear division of property. No fighting over furniture. No passive-aggressive stabs about who gets what. I didn't want anything from her. Not the house. Not the car. Not the explanation. All I wanted was separation, full, final, and absolute. I didn't stick around to see her reaction. Didn't care how long it took for her to open the envelope. Whether she read it once or 5 times. Whether she cried, raged, or laughed. That part wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to her and her choices. She sent one message that night. Just a photo, the signed page of the agreement, already notarized. No caption. No sarcasm. Just a blurry snapshot of the end. I stared at it for a second, then deleted it. Not out of cruelty, but because it had served its purpose. I didn't need to keep evidence of her understanding. I didn't need confirmation that she finally got it. Because this wasn't about her realizing I was serious. It was about me honoring the version of myself who stayed too long. The one who waited for things to get better. Who tried to fix what someone else was actively breaking. That man was gone. And the man who replaced him didn't need permission to move forward. She once screamed she was better off alone. She just never expected me to agree and act accordingly. Now the paperwork matched the silence. And the only thing louder than her scream was the echo it left behind when I didn't answer it. Freedom doesn't show up in fireworks. It comes in routines. Waking up without a knot in your chest. Drinking coffee without tension in the room. Listening to silence and not needing to fill it. The first 2 weeks after she signed the divorce papers, I didn't celebrate. I recalibrated. New gym, new habits, new passwords, new playlists, new patterns. I stopped walking the same routes. Stopped going to the same grocery store. Not because I feared running into her, but because I no longer lived in places where we used to pretend we were fine. This wasn't reinvention. It was reclamation. I started talking to people again, not to distract myself, but to reconnect with who I was before I'd shrunk to fit inside a relationship that constantly demanded more and gave less. I got drinks with coworkers, took long drives with no destination, signed up for a photography class just because I'd once said I'd get around to it. I even ran into someone, a friend of a friend named Lauren. No pressure, no expectations, just a real conversation that didn't end in sarcasm, guilt, or emotional landmines. Rachel must have heard about it. Because a week later, I noticed her watching my Instagram stories. She hadn't followed me in months. I didn't block her, didn't restrict access. I wanted her to see it, not for revenge, not to show off, but because this time, she was the one outside the window, looking in. I posted a photo, just a skyline, peaceful, balanced, steady, no people, no drama, no caption, but it said more than she probably wanted to read, because she always thought I'd be the one stuck in the past. Scrolling through memories, playing the what-if game. Instead, she found someone who didn't just survive without her, but thrived. I got a message that night. It was short. I hope you're happy. No punctuation, no emotion. I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because I was. Not in a loud, triumphant way, but in the way that makes you forget why you ever settled for less. She used to be my whole world. Now she was just a chapter. Important, but already finished. She looked back. I didn't. Because I was no longer defined by her leaving. I was defined by the fact that I never looked back when she did. It came on a Sunday. The kind of day that used to feel heavy, slow hours, dead air, memories creeping in through the silence. But not anymore. Now Sundays were mine again. No obligations. No moods to decode. No walking on eggshells trying to guess which version of her I'd meet by noon. So when the notification buzzed on my phone, I didn't jump. Didn't tense up. Didn't prepare for war. It was a voice message. Rachel. 17 seconds. I almost deleted it without listening. But something told me. This wasn't about her. It was about the last thread she thought still tied us. I played it. She sounded tired. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone who'd spent too long holding on to a story that no longer had an audience. I didn't think this would be the end. You didn't even say goodbye. Her voice cracked. Mine never did. Because I didn't know a goodbye to someone who left the conversation a year ago. She walked out emotionally long before I packed a single box. She closed every door before I picked up a pen to sign anything. Now, she wanted closure. But not to heal. She wanted access. One last door, slightly cracked, in case she ever felt like slipping back in. But there was nothing behind that door anymore. Just clean air and silence she used to fear. I didn't respond. Didn't replay it. Didn't feel the need to dissect every word like I used to. Instead, I deleted it. And that was the difference between her and me. She still wanted to circle the ending, rewrite the final page. But I'd already moved the book to a different shelf. Not because I was bitter, because I was free. I didn't need to prove I was over her. My life did that for me. She called later that night. I watched the screen light up, then fade. No voicemail this time. Because deep down, she knew. She wasn't calling me. She was calling the man who waited. The man who begged. The man who tolerated distance, disrespect, and conditional affection. But that man doesn't live here anymore. She burned that house down. And the man who rebuilt from the ashes? He doesn't open doors for ghosts. It had been 6 months. Long enough for everything to change. Short enough to remember exactly where every crack in the sidewalk used to be. I hadn't driven past the old house since I left. Not out of avoidance. Out of intent. I didn't want to look back until I was certain it wouldn't pull me under. That day, I parked across the street. Not to spy. Not to mourn. Just to see it once. Not as home, but as proof I survived it. It looked the same. Same paint. Same porch. Same wind chimes she bought and never hung straight. But something was different. The porch light was on. Middle of the day. Clear sky. But that bulb was glowing like an open invitation. She was home. Maybe she always kept it on now. Maybe she saw the car. Maybe, just maybe, she still believed I'd stepped back into that frame. I didn't. I sat for 2 minutes. No more. No less. And in that time, I let every version of me that ever begged, bent, or broke walk away with me. Because what she never understood was that goodbye doesn't always sound like, I'm done. Sometimes it's just the absence of footsteps returning. I left a single envelope in the mailbox. Not a letter. Not a plea. Just a photo. The last one we ever took before it all fell apart. We were smiling. But now I could see it. The distance in her eyes, the tension in mine. 2 people performing affection instead of living it. On the back, I wrote one line. You were right. You're better off alone. That wasn't sarcasm. It was truth. The kind that frees both people, if they're willing to face it. I walked back to my car. She never came out. Maybe she watched from the window. Maybe she didn't. Didn't matter. The moment I turned the key, I felt it. The final break. Not loud. Not sharp. Just clean. I drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. Because she wasn't behind me anymore. And I wasn't the man who needed closure. I was the man who gave it to himself. No confrontation. No grand finale. Just a quiet end to a loud chapter. And in the silence that followed, I didn't hear her scream. Only the echo of a man who walked away and never came back. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.